Good evening, everyone. Please have a seat. Thank you for coming to join us for the Apex Town Council meeting, regularly scheduled meeting for February 21st, 2017. I'd like to call this meeting to order. At this time, I'd like to turn to Councilwoman Wilkie for invocation, please.
If you'll bow with me, please. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you so much for the blessings that you have given us. We thank you for the opportunity to meet here freely and openly tonight. Please bless all those that are out serving our country at home and abroad. Keep them safe and help them as they protect our freedom. Bless us all in all that we do. Give us wisdom and strength and guidance as we meet tonight. In thy name I pray. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Join me with everyone else for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you for coming tonight. I want to welcome everyone here. In case you missed it, the agenda is printed and out on the podium in the hall outside the doors. We will be following this agenda generally. At this time, we move into the period of presentations. Our first presentation is the Citizens for Apex Parks, also known as CAPS. And presenting today, it looks like Britt Wilson and Jimmy Perry. Come on up. Or, okay, good. There we go. Like those velociraptors.
Yeah. My name is Britt Wilson, and I want to thank the council on behalf of CAPS and its members for giving us this opportunity to talk to you all tonight. Back when I chaired the advisory commission, Apex Parks and Recreation Advisory Commission, there were rumors that I was a little bit verbose. I'm going to try to dispel those tonight.
I second that. CAPS was formed back in 1996, and it was precipitated by the town's decision to have a bond for Parks and Recreation. And we wanted to supplement the town because the town could only educate the voters, and we wanted to have an arm, or be the arm, where we could convince voters why they needed to vote. And that bond was $6 million, and it was roundly successful, and we'd like to think that CAPS contributed to that. The 83% approval for that bond was, I think, unexpected, but we were real tickled to have it. We initially enlisted committed and visible members of Apex to join our efforts. That included, at the time, current and past Parks Recreation Advisory Board members, as well as future town council members. So we had a pretty good presence when we were out talking to the public. After the successful bond, we were involved with the Kids Town Park and the development of that. And then in 2004, we had another bond that came up for the town. That bond was $13 million, and it was approved by 86%. So obviously the folks in Apex think a lot of their Parks and Recreation and the availability of those facilities. So the last 20 years, we've done quite a bit, we think, with different projects. The Haley Arts Center was supported by CAPS as well. We contributed to that effort. The Rogers Family Skate Plaza, that was another project that we participated in. And we look forward to continuing our mission in supporting Apex and its Parks and Recreation initiatives. And I'll end with just my obligatory sales pitch. For the record, we're always looking for new members because we want to continue this for projects that come up in the future. So again, we appreciate your time. Jimmy?
Okay, so I'm just here to just hand out cash, so, that's my role here. But, actually, I'm gonna ask Lance to come down here, to come down in a moment. We are tonight gonna present a check for $50,000, which is gonna be $30,000 for improvements of what's beginning to wear down Kidstown Park, $10,000 for inclusion of a playground at Salem Park, and $10,000 to sort of establish the public arts that I know you guys have been talking with the advisory board with. So with no further, I'm the guy with very few words. He's more the talker. So Lance, if you come up, Brett, just come up and we'd just like to present to the town a check for $50,000. Thanks for those things. We'll get it.
All right. Very good. Thank you. Yeah, all right. It says pay to the order of Town of Apex, so I might need Drew and Vance to go figure out how to run this to the copy. Thank you.
I'm sure our finance officer can figure that out.
Thank you very much. We do appreciate what the group does. Let me come up there before you walk out the door, Jimmy. Well, I did want to do this up here because rather than shout, I use the microphone. People can hear. Also, for our audio recordings, make sure that picks up. I do appreciate what all the Parks Department do, the Parks Advisory Commission do, and CAPS as well. We really appreciate the effort that everybody puts into that. We do have great parks. We continue to make them better. This morning I spoke a little bit to that, how we continue. It's an ongoing process, and we'll continue doing that, hopefully for decades to come. So thank you guys very much.
I'd just like to second what you just said. I know Jimmy and Britt have been involved in this from day one. I've been go a long way back with Britt and CAPS, I think 96 you said. So they've been leaders in that organization and have served the town very well, so thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, so at this time we'll move to presentation number 2. Shannon Cox, the Senior Transportation Planner. She has an update on the Wake Transit Plan implementation. Shannon.
All right. Here's real quick. Okay, good evening. In 2016, the Wake Transit Plan, a 10-year vision for transit in Wake County, was adopted. The purpose of today's update is to share with the Town Council what's being done to implement the plan now. This is an informational update being provided to local councils across the county, and no action is requested tonight. However, within the next month, the council will be asked to consider approval of 2 participation agreements that I will describe in the presentation. In addition, a public comment period is now open on the fiscal year 2018 work plan that's part of the Wake Transit implementation. The first set of slides are review for the council, so I'm going to move through them quickly, and I left a brochure at your desk covering what's in the Wake Transit Plan, and if there's audience members who are interested, I'll leave brochures on the podium outside as well. If you remember, there were 4 big moves included in the plan. These are not listed in priority order or planned timing of implementation. The first move was to connect regionally. This is the commuter rail that will extend from Garner through Raleigh, Cary, Morrisville, and into Orange County, as well as a Go Triangle Regional Express bus that connects to the airport. The second move is to connect all Wake County communities. The lines shown here are not routes, they're connections. So for Apex, that means a 60-minute all-day connection to Raleigh and 60-minute peak hour connections from Holly Springs through Apex to Cary and RTP.
60 minutes being every hour a bus comes?
That's right.
Okay.
Third big move is frequent, reliable urban mobility. That's the bus rapid transit. That's where you have a dedicated lane for a bus that's almost like a fixed rail corridor. And that's on 4 corridors in Raleigh and Cary. The narrow lines shown in red are the frequent all-day bus service. That's 15 minutes. Every 15 minutes a bus will come through in those areas. And then the last big move, and it's important for Apex, is enhanced access to transit. You'll see that we're shown as one of the areas in green. Those are the areas identified as community funding areas. And what that means is that when we are ready, we are eligible to receive up to a 50% match of local funds for local transit services. For example, a loop around town. So part of the legislation is that these new new funding must support new transit services. So we're not replacing existing funding sources to fund existing services. So new funding includes the half-cent sales tax, the $7 county vehicle registration fee, $3 increase to regional vehicle registration, and state and federal support for new services. All of that is in addition to what you see listed as existing funding sources.
When it says local, what does that mean?
Right here, the local and regional.
Yeah.
That means, like, for example, Cary and Raleigh currently provide extensive funding for transit.
Okay.
We provide a contribution through our special appropriations to Wake County Tracks. They're considering how that's going to be handled. It's likely to be replaced by Wake Transit funds in the future.
Yeah, thank you.
Sure. Okay, so a Transit Planning Advisory Committee, or TPAC, was formed as a technical committee to implement the transit plan. I am our voting member on TPAC, and you can see that all of the municipalities in Wake County are represented, as well as Research Triangle Park, Go Triangle, NC State University, and the Capital Area MPO. TPAC is making recommendations on how to implement the transit plan. The Go Triangle Executive Board and Campo Executive Board are the decision makers for approving or not those recommendations. So the transit plan established a vision for transit in Wake County over the next 10 years, but it didn't provide a lot of information on how that would actually be accomplished. So TPAC has kicked off these 6 projects to begin moving toward implementation. So the public engagement strategy is looking at how the public will be involved in planning moving forward. The staffing model is looking at what additional staff are needed to implement the plan. The multi-year service implementation plan is looking at planning and prioritization of bus projects. Transit Corridors Major Investment Study is for commuter rail and bus rapid transit. The Community Funding Area Program Management Plan is establishing the policies and procedures for places like Apex to make those matching fund requests. And then finally, surveys are being conducted or will be conducted to establish a baseline for customer awareness and satisfaction, and then that will be used to measure our progress moving forward. So I mentioned that in the coming months, the council will have an opportunity to consider 2 agreements. These are shown, or what I'm referring to is the long-term agreement shown here. Originally, this was anticipated to be 1 agreement, but they've broken it into 2 parts. So the Master Participation Agreement basically indicates that we are recognizing the Wake Transit Plan is adopted, and want to be a part of implementation. There's a second agreement that indicates that the $7 vehicle registration fee will go directly to Go Triangle to be dispersed through the transit plan implementation rather than directly to transit providers. We are currently not a transit provider. Any parties wishing to participate in the Wake Transit Plan are required to be a part of these agreements. The other two agreements, operating and annual capital operating funding agreements, don't come into play until we request a project and want to be part of the operation and funding of it. This slide is intended to demonstrate how local input is provided into the transit plan implementation. So what's key for us is this top box, local conversations. This represents our work in Apex to consider our transit needs. This will be done through a newly formed transit committee and through an update to our comprehensive transportation plan. Any recommendations from those processes will be brought to the planning board and town council for review. And then your recommendations I will take to TPAC for consideration further down the line. This graphic shows the work plan process, and this is how the work plan will typically work in terms of the timing. It has not worked that way for fiscal year 17 or 18 because of the very fast pace at which we had to get rolling. So the fiscal year 17 work plan has already been adopted. The fiscal year 18 work plan is currently available for public comment and comments from local boards. The 18 plan is aimed at implementing projects that the TPAC consider to be low-hanging fruit, things that they already could get rolling within 1 year. It's also intended to reserve capital for major investments and ramp up in terms of staffing and planning. To view that work plan, you can go to waketransit.org, and there's a comment form there. Finally, in summary, this is capturing the timeline for implementation. In the March to April timeframe, we'll be looking at the agreements that I mentioned. On April 1st, the half-cent sales tax collection begins. The fiscal year 2018 work plan will be adopted over May to June. July 2017 to 2018 is when customers will actually begin to see changes in transit services. And then in 2019 to 2020, customers will actually begin to see new routes and the results of those planning studies I mentioned. This is the main Wake Transit point of contact, but I'm your representative on TPAC, so if you ever have any questions or input, please share it with me. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much, Shannon. As this was an informational item, I will say we'll just move along, and if anybody has any further conversations they'd like to have, I'm sure through the town manager and Shannon can have those conversations a little bit later. Appreciate the heads up keeping us plugged in.
You're welcome. Thanks.
And just to tag on to that, for those who aren't aware, we also have a Transit Citizen Advisory Panel, which is a TCAP, to go along with the TPAC, and that's local citizens of Apex kind of helping out, providing feedback on how we might like to see transit here. All right, with that, we now move into the item on the agenda called consent agenda. These are the items that we continue to be routine, consider to be routine. Typically, they're enacted by a single motion because they are expected to be non-controversial. If any council member, however, wishes to pull one, they certainly can do so. So now would be a time for a council member to either mention an item they'd like to discuss later or to make a motion to approve the consent.
I'll make a motion, we approve consent agenda.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve consent. Any further discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. All right, consent agenda is passed. We now move to the regular meeting agenda. This is where we set our agenda. In addition to what's printed on here, we also have a request to go into closed session at the end. That would be page 5 if you have the document there. Even though it says there are no closed sessions, we do have an item that we need to discuss related to land acquisition. My suggestion to the council is that be included on our agenda for tonight. Any further items that people want to mention, or is there a motion?
I'll make a motion, we approve the agenda with the addition of the land acquisition, conversation in the closed session.
Second.
All right, motion and a second for the regular meeting agenda with that change. Any further discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. All right, we have set the agenda. We now go through, and just as a reminder, public forum will be in the first meeting of March. Public hearings, we now move into public hearing number 1. Diane Ken will be presenting to us a possible motion for adopting an ordinance on the question of annexation as it relates to the Raleigh Land Fund 1 LLC. And this is the preserve at White Oak Creek property. Diane Ken.
Good evening. All right, so just to orient you to this site, we have White Oak Creek Drive, secluded acres. This is Green Level Church Road. This is up in the White Oak Creek area. And this is an annexation that's being requested so that the Weddington subdivision, sorry, that's the wrong thing. Weddington's up there. White Oak Creek, Preserve at White Oak Creek can get their construction plans approved. So we do recommend approval.
Great. Any questions for Diane before we go into public hearing? All right, let me ask the town clerk, do we have any sign-ups for public hearing number 1? All right, not seeing any sign-ups. I will formally open the public hearing and ask if there is anyone that wanted to speak on this matter. All right, not seeing any, then we will go ahead to close the public hearing, bring the matter to council for a possible motion.
Make a motion to approve.
Thank you.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve this annexation. Any further discussion?
I am concerned, I know we talked about this in depth at the approval, I am concerned about the hairpin turns on secluded acres as a main travel corridor. I realize where we are with that, but I am concerned about that.
All right, thank you. Further discussion? Not hearing any, I'll call for the vote. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. All right, that passes unanimously. We now move to public hearing number 2. Public hearing number 2 is a possible annexation for Albert Womble property, also known as Towns at North Salem, approximately 48 acres. Diane Ken.
All right, just to orient you to the site, this is US 64. This is the ramp that comes off to North Salem Street. This is the Towns at North Salem project. Again, they are requesting annexation so that they can get public water and sewer in order to get, and they would like to get their construction plan signed. So staff does recommend approval.
Any questions for Diane? All right, thank you, Diane. At this time, I'll open the public hearing. No one signed up. Not seeing anybody jumping out of their seat. We'll close the public hearing and we'll refer the matter back to council for a possible motion.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any further discussion on that? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. All right, that motion passes unanimously. We now move to public hearing number 3, possible motion on annexation for the Tommy and Nancy King, also known as a portion of Salem Point PUD. Diane.
All right. So this property is at Salem Church Road and North Salem Street next to the Trace. It is a portion of Salem Point PUD, which is across the street, and they are requesting public water and sewer. We do recommend approval.
Any questions for Diane?
Is this the extension of the, is that a stand pack neighborhood where there's a couple lots are going in? Is that what this is?
It's across from
No. It's,
Is this, is townhouses gonna go there, or what's the plan to go there?
there's
Water,
two
sewer.
homes, but But they're actually annexing because they need water and sewer for the existing house, or water for the.
Which one are we annexing now?
Nancy King's house that's located here.
Utilities.
For utilities.
No. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Diane. At this time, I'll open the public hearing. No one signed up. No one jumps up. We'll close the public hearing, and we'll now refer the matter back to council.
Motion to approve. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Further discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. All right, that matter passes unanimously. We now move to public hearing number 4. Again, possible annexation for property by Ted Mills, portion of Sweetwater, .117 acres. Diane,
It's easier to see on this, we do have the aerial, but,
zoom in.
basically, we have this teeny tiny little triangle that, was left off by the surveyor who did the original large parcel, and so we do need to annex it. We do recommend approval.
All right, questions for Diane?
How, was that just an oversight?
It was oversight.
Just-
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Oh, I need to have a public hearing.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm just getting on a roll here.
No,
All right.
wait.
Open the public hearing. No one signed up. No one's jumping up. All right, we'll close the public hearing, now bring it back to the council. I heard a motion there.
So moved, yeah.
Still stand, okay, is there a,
Second.
and we got a second. Any further discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. All right, that's one of the smallest annexations you'll see this year, probably. That passes unanimously. We now move to public hearing number 5, Mike Clark, possible annexation for T. Lacey Williams Farm and Martha Smith family, a portion of the Smith Farm Phase 1. Mike?
Okay, this is actually a two-part, for public hearings, 5 and 6.
Yes, thank you.
I apologize, okay, there we go. There are 2 locations that are requested to be annexed. Both of them are part of the Smith Farm Phase 1 Plan Unit Development. One area was, a discrepancy in the survey. At the widest point here, it's 2 feet, and then it tapered back down to 0 for a portion of this parcel and this parcel. As an orientation, it's along Olive Chapel Road with Smith Farm PUD here and Haley Farm PUD here. The other location is requesting to be annexed in and rezoned as part of, that will be part of Richardson Road. Currently, both parcels are zoned R80W, and they're both located within Wake County. The future land use category calls for both of these to be low-density residential. And it kind of as orientation, this small triangle here, and then a sliver here. This is Olive Chapel Road. North is this direction, US 64. And as you can see, the portion of Richardson Road does encroach onto the neighboring property, and then the sliver would be located here. The planning board held a public hearing on the rezoning at last week's meeting and unanimously recommended approval, and staff can recommend approval of both the rezoning request as well as the annexation.
Any questions for Michael? All right, thank you, Michael. At this time, I'll open the public hearing. No one signed up. See somebody run into the, you... I'm here if you have questions. Oh, if there are questions, okay, thanks.
Sit down.
While the public hearing is open, let me just ask, does anyone have a question that Mr. Jones might be able to address?
It's just gonna be road, is that correct?
Yeah.
No low-density housing there, huh? Okay.
All right. Yeah, if you're answering questions, I need you to come up and state your name and your address.
Stuart Jones, Jones and Connaughton Engineering, 221 North Salem Street, downtown Apex. It's all for Richardson Road and then a survey discrepancy on the other side. We had to do the annexation, still not sure why we have to rezone the road right away, but
You're not here to ask questions.
I'm not here to ask questions, that's right.
All right,
Thank you.
thank you. Any other
Yeah,
questions?
no.
Okay, all right. Does anyone else need to speak from the public? All right, I'll close the public hearing, refer the matter back to council. And before we go any further, just let me say, as a reminder, these two are being heard together, public hearing 5 and 6. And I'll state this for the record, even though council understands, but we typically can't rezone until we annex, and we don't really want to annex unless we're also going to rezone. So therefore, we like to group them together in the same public hearing, same discussion. With that said, though, I always forget, we need 2 separate motions
Yes.
to be correct. Okay. So let me ask for a motion on the annexation question first.
I'll make the motion.
All right.
Second.
So we have a motion and a second for annexation. Further discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. All right, that passes unanimously. We now move to public hearing 6, and I'll take a motion on rezoning.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion is second to approve the rezoning. Any further discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. All right, that also passes unanimously. We now move to public hearing number 7. This is a possible motion on annexation for the Lori McKinnish property, Touch Integrated Veterinary Hospital, approximately 2 acres. Diane.
All right, so orient you to the site. This is South Salem Street. There's the town water tower there. It is for the Touch Integrated Veterinary Hospital. They would like to get public water and sewer, and they need to be annexed in order to get their construction plan signed. Staff does recommend approval.
Questions for Diane? All right, thank you, Diane. At this time, I'll open the public hearing. Not seeing anyone, and there was no one written on the list, I will now close the public hearing, bring it back to council for a possible motion.
Make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Not hearing any. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. That motion passes unanimously. We now move to public hearing number 8. This is a possible annexation for the Staley Smith, or also Magnolia office property, 2.06 acres along North Salem Street, and annexation into the town corporate limits. Diane.
All right, so orient you to the site. This is North Salem Street with Apex Peakway here, Magnolia Walk subdivision. This was all a part of one planned unit development. They are proposing to annex in order to get public water and sewer, and they need the annexation to have their construction plan signed. We do recommend approval.
All right, questions for Diane? All right, thank you, Diane. At this time, I'll open the public hearing. I have 3 names on the list. I'll call them in the order they're written, and please come up, state your name and your address. There's a 3-minute timer. You'll see green, yellow. When you see yellow, wrap it up, because when red comes on, I'll politely find a way to ask you to finish. The names are Johnny Nix, Roger Lague, I'm guessing I said that right, or Lug, and Ron Montagna. Come on up in that order if you could. And please do state your name and address for the record.
My name is Johnny Nix, 1015 Magnolia Leaf Court. I'm a board member with the Magnolia Walk Association. It's not the annexation that we have an issue with, it's the design of the construction of the complex. Because everything was done up at once, when we bought our homes, it was not made aware to us that there was going to be an office complex directly behind us. So, like, my house is directly where the parking lot's going to be. Matter of fact, where the dumpsters are going to be, roughly right behind the buffer. So I've only got a couple of feet between my yard and that area. But the part I'm going to speak on myself is going to the entrance of the parking area on Magnolia Blossom Lane. The biggest fear with the community right now is cut-through traffic coming down North Salem to get to the area. The parking area is designed that you can make a left or right turn into it. A study was presented to me, an ITE trip generation manual, that talks about an increase of traffic in that area due to the office complex itself. And a percentage of that might cut through the community from North Salem into the community to get there. We have roughly about 20 kids that play in that community between the ages of 3 and 14, with about another 4 or 5 that come to visit their grandparents on a regular basis between the ages of 5 and 10. as everybody knows, kids don't always stay on the sidewalks in the yard and things like that. Our biggest fear is with the children playing in the yards and stuff like that. Increased traffic, increased kids could increase the percentage of accidents from a ball hitting a car, breaking a window, a kid accidentally running out and getting hit by a car as it comes through. What we're asking is, in this motion, is to look at the design of the entrance from Magnolia Blossom going into the complex to make it a right turn entrance only. That way, cars coming down Magnolia Road Trail into the Blossom Lane can't make a left turn into that area. We feel that making this change and with the routine traffic that would go into the situation would decrease the likelihood of that cut-through traffic coming through and decrease the possibility of an injury to one of the children or even someone jogging around or just getting out of the cars and things of that nature. Like I said, we're not looking to stop the annex. We're just looking at for this portion of that design for the council to take into consideration of the change of that portion. And that's about all I have for this portion. Thank you everybody for your time.
Great, thank you, Mr. Nix.
And I don't know, I've got documents to hand out. I don't know if y'all really need to see that with your line
Sure, you
drawing.
can hand them to the clerk.
Okay.
That'd be fine.
All right.
She'll distribute. And while Roger Legs, and I'm sorry if I got that wrong, I'm working on the spelling. And while you're coming up, so since this is an annexation, I just want to make sure staff got those comments in case there's anything they want to look at for traffic.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, my name's Roger Legue, and I'm at
Legue.
1020 Magnolia Leaf Court, homeowner there, and also on the board of directors for the Homeowners Association. And I'd like to talk to the buffer area that is proposed to be behind the parking area. It's a buffer between lots 26, 35, 36, and 37 that border the north side of the parking lot and the dumpster area.
Can you point those out on the map, please?
Back here.
Okay.
Right here. We're asking that the proposed 6-foot fence that would be in the buffer area will be increased to 8 feet. That would give us a higher visual barrier between our properties and the new building. We'd also request an increase in the number of trees planted on that fence line. There are 8 proposed, and we would ask that that be doubled to 16 to better disguise the building silhouette and provide enhanced privacy to the families of the 4 lots that border the parking lot.
How many are there now?
There's 8. We're asking for 16. The Magnolia Walk Homeowners Association would be willing to share the cost of these enhancements if they are approved by the council and they would be agreed to by Mr. Smith, the property owner. We are open to other modifications of that buffer area, but the higher fence line and the additional trees are our highest priority. We understand that the rezoning and the site plans had already been approved. However, our community was in its infancy when that occurred. The homeowners who are now most affected had not completed or even started the purchase of their homes in that time frame. So we're asking now respectfully if you would reconsider these modest enhancements to that buffer. It would be a welcome improvement for the homeowners in Magnolia Walk. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Leahy. Got it. All right, Ron Montagna.
Good evening. My name is Ron Montagna. I'm at 1271 Magnolia Road Trail. I'm a homeowner in Magnolia Walk subdivision. I'm also the vice president of the board of directors. In addition to John, Roger, and myself, we have about 20 residents of the subdivision here tonight. Again, we're not questioning the annexation. It's fine with us, but we do believe that the modifications expressed by Roger and those that were presented to the documents would increase the livability of our subdivision. We also believe that the modifications that we're suggesting are really quite minor with respect to the entire development and are reasonable. Personally, I live on the far end and would not be substantially affected. However, as a officer of the board and a homeowner, I am fully supportive of the recommendations presented by the other board members and by the homeowners in the documents that we left. Thank you all. We appreciate your attention.
All right, thank you, Mr. Montagna. That concludes the list of folks to speak in the public hearing for this matter. So at this time, I'll close the public hearing. Let me just ask, you referred to 20 people or so. Can you raise your hands, those who are from Magnolia? Okay, great, thank you. Appreciate you coming out tonight and participating in your government's process. With that said, let me just ask a guidance question from the town attorney. So some of the things that were mentioned tonight, trees and fence and those kind of requirements, is that an item that we can legitimately discuss as part of an annexation request?
I believe there's already an approved site plan for this project, and I don't think these are items that, there's not a way to make these conditions of an annexation.
Okay.
An annexation either is approved and is effective immediately, or it's not. So I don't think there's anything that you can do with the annexation to make those changes.
All right, thank you. Thank you very much. And council members, just asking, does anybody need any clarification? I appreciate the comments that were made. I think there is a little bit of process we have to understand. For an annexation, we may not be able to impose, or we cannot impose any of these type of things for an annexation request. However, our experience has been that this particular owner is pretty good to work with, and he's willing to have conversations. So, and some of us know him. We may be able to work with him, discuss with him personally. All right, with that said, I'm bringing the matter back to council for any further discussion.
May I ask a question of staff?
Staff, sure.
I'm just curious, how wide is that buffer that we're talking about? You have no idea?
I don't.
Well,
It's 10 feet?
It's 10 feet.
Thank you.
Okay. So the question in front of us is, do we approve annexation for this request?
If you intend a motion, I'll make a motion to approve the annexation.
Yes. All right, we've got a motion. Is there a second?
And I will second it with the request of staff that we pass this information on to the,
Can we do that?
I'm just requesting.
We can.
Sure.
So we have a motion and a second to approve the annexation. And, sorry, did you want to add?
No, and I'll be glad to talk to Mr. Smith if you'd like.
Okay, all right.
Thank you. Okay.
All right, thank you. And any further discussion on the motion?
Yeah, I think these are very modest requests, especially after everything we've seen here recently, so I
Yep.
would appreciate these changes being made.
All right.
Thanks for coming out.
All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. All right, the annexation passes unanimously. All your comments are so noted. I'm sure staff and those of you who know Mr. Smith are certainly willing to have a conversation with him and see what he's willing to do. Appreciate you coming out. That concludes our public hearings for tonight. There is no old business or unfinished business. We do have 2 new business items now. If you're following along, this is on page 5. And I'll pause one moment for those who want to leave semi-conspicuously. That's a word. It is now.
I'm gonna check. Is it?
It is now.
Check during the break.
It's good to speak with
All right, thank you. Now, at this time, we'll move into new business number 1. Liz Lofton is here to present some subdivision plan for Golden View Master Subdivision.
Good evening. This site consists of 2 parcels totaling 3.49 acres and is located on the south side of James Street between Tingen and Germain Streets. The property is zoned Plain Unit Development, and both parcels are in the Small Town Character Overlay District. The proposed subdivision is consistent with the medium-density residential land use designation. The applicant conducted a neighborhood meeting on August 24th, and a copy of the neighborhood meeting report is in the staff report. The subdivision is proposing 20 single-family unit lots with 1 point of access onto James Street. A sub-street to the adjacent property to the west is also provided. The Parks and Rec Commission reviewed this project at their September 28th meeting. The Advisory Commission unanimously recommended a fee in lieu for the project. In addition, the commission recommended a dedication of public greenway easement, which the applicant has provided. This will ultimately allow the site to connect to the Big Branch Greenway to the south in the future. The property is proposing mass grading, and an additional 2% of RCA is being provided. The town of Apex will provide utility services. A 10-foot type D buffer is proposed along James Street, and a 6-foot privacy fence, as required by the PUD, is to be constructed along the western property line. So,
The buffer along James Street is what? Type B or D?
D.
All right.
A full list of the architectural conditions are included in the staff report. The conditions are consistent with the small town character overlay district. Planning staff can recommend approval, and the applicant and myself are here to answer any questions.
Great. Any questions for Ms. Lofton?
Does the type D fit our UDO as it is? We are making changes to the UDO for A buffers along that type of thing, along James Street.
It is.
I guess this is the overlay district that we're working with that allows for this.
I'm pretty sure it's consistent with the UDO and the PUD.
I'm sure it is, unfortunately. Thank you.
Any other discussion?
Were they proposing any other barrier between the neighborhood and James Street, a berm perhaps, or?
There's a 6-foot, wood fence along the western border.
Yeah, for that private residence over there, right?
But not, James Street.
On the north side of that James
Yeah,
Street.
the north side of the way out.
Talk to the applicant.
Hmm?
Talk to the applicant.
Okay.
Oh, well, can we ask in a new business?
We're discussing to lead to a possible motion.
Yeah.
I'm kind of surprised, for privacy of the buildings on that northern end, you would think that, something other than a D buffer would be apropos. But if it's our UDO, we're stuck, I suppose. Unless the developer volunteered to change it.
Diane, didn't they discuss that at the? Is there a data?
No, I was just confirming that this was a discussion point during the rezoning as well. These buffers, and
Okay.
that's what was approved in the rezoning and in the UDO, and that's why the applicant is bringing that forward at this point.
I guess we didn't discuss buffers along James Street, obviously.
Not hearing any discussion, let me ask for a motion.
I make a motion we approve.
Is there a second?
I'll second. What the concern is that the buffers, is that what?
Yeah,
Yep.
along the north side.
So there's nothing you can do about the buffers as a developer here?
There's the applicant's
This is the applicant.
representative.
This is
Oh, the annexation.
Yeah, this is the MSP now.
New business.
I thought it was new business, that
It is new business.
approving this master
Yeah,
plan.
This is the MSP.
Master subdivision.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Yeah.
Now, what is,
So we have a motion and a second.
can't ask the
Is there discussion on the motion to approve?
I thought I recall that us having some vague discussion about this, and, maybe I'm incorrect, but I thought the developer said that they were gonna see what they could do on that north side of James Street. I remember we talked about the fence, I'm sure we talked about buffers as well.
They're saying I can't ask the developer.
Well, just to clarify, before we do that, is there a clarification that the master subdivision plan is consistent with the conditions at rezoning? We've already determined that it was, correct? So, and as far as we know, there was no difference between the rezoning that was approved formally and what we have in front of us, or at least what's consistent with it. So I'm not sure I understand where the confusion is.
I guess it's not confusion, it's just troubling that, you know, we certainly got into buffers on the other side. I guess we didn't specifically say we wanted to see an A or a B buffer along there, so the developer took advantage of us, basically. That's my opinion.
Can we ask it that?
What question do you need clarification?
Are they willing to increase the buffers?
Not sure if we can do that. Can we do that as part of a master subdivision plan?
They'd have to voluntarily do that.
But this isn't a rezoning, that's the question.
It's an administrative approval.
Uh-huh.
And the way an administrative approval works is if the applicant meets the conditions of the UDO
Right.
and the zoning ordinance, they are entitled to an approval.
Right. So so let's do this. My suggestion would be, we have the motion for approval of the master subdivision plan, and I think we can still give a message perhaps to the developer/builder as necessary, that maybe would not be binding, but would certainly be advisable. Does that sound reasonable? But what we have before us is a master subdivision plan that's being presented that's consistent with the rezoning.
Yeah, so we're obligated, basically, to scrutinize anything that comes forward again. Not this, but anything in the future.
Does anyone object if I call for the vote, and then we can we can ask whatever we'd like to of the developer, but I'd like to separate the two. I'd like to have the vote.
We can't ask anything of the developer.
We can make statements.
Yeah.
Should we make statements now or after we?
I'd like to do it after the vote, because I'd like to not conflate the two.
Mm-hmm. So I think you should call for the vote, and then we will not ask about buffers in this setting.
All right, let me, without objection, I'll call for the vote. All right, all in favor of approving the master subdivision plan, indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no.
No.
Okay, that was 4-1 is what I heard.
Yep.
Okay, so that passes. At this time, before we move to new business number 2, is there a statement anyone would like to make in general?
Mr. Jensen, since you...
Well, since I voted no, yeah, my feeling is that to try to keep not just the small town character of Apex, but the more rural look also, even when we're in the more dense area, I think the buffers that face the more larger thoroughfare streets should be of greater density, not only for the look from the street to the subdivision, but from the people that are living in those houses, that they would have a little bit more privacy, yeah. Thank you. That's just my opinion.
Okay.
Well noted.
All right. Anything else to add? Any other statements to be made?
I hope the developer will take that into consideration.
All right.
Thank you. And I think they showed consideration for the issues that came up in the neighborhood meeting. It was clear that everything they asked about, that the applicant did respond to it, so I'm sure that you respond to this as well.
All right. All right. Thanks, everyone. We'll now move on to new business number 2.
So even, I think, we don't need him to come up here, even though he's sitting there on the edge of his seat.
No.
Okay.
No.
Tried.
That's fine.
Okay, all right.
We can have conversations later. This is the time
Okay.
for us to conduct new business.
Okay.
New business number 2, possible motion approving Jenks Crossing master subdivision plan for the properties located at 1921 Holt Road and 6716 Old Jenks Road, containing approximately 3 acres. Brandy.
Hey, good evening. This project is located at the Apex Cary annexation boundary line at Jenks, Old Jenks and Holt Road and 55. This is next to Charleston Village, and Lake Cameron apartment homes. There's a Walgreen at the corner. The proposal, this is, currently zoned planned unit development conditional zoning. It was, amended on the land use map, to medium density, high density commercial, and medium density. The acreage is 7.89 acres. The applicant is proposing 9 single-family homes and 26 townhomes at a density of 4.44 gross dwelling units per acre. The RCA is being provided at 3.05 acres. The applicant conducted a neighborhood meeting on October 26th. The neighborhood meeting report is attached. This is the single-family section of the subdivision known as Phase 1. As you can see, the 9 single-family homes have their own entrance off of Old Jenks and directly across the Oak Point subdivision. There is buffering on here at Old Jenks, a 30-foot type A, adjacent to the neighbors, a 10-foot type B. In the Phase 2 townhomes, the buffer along Old Jenks is a 30-foot type A. Along Holt is a 20-foot type A. And along Charleston Village is a 25-foot type A. Additional buffering was added to address the concerns raised by council during review of the PUD regarding visibility of the backs of the units from the roadway. The RCA being provided represents a total of 29.4%. If you remember, this was proposed to be townhomes on both sides of this road, and the council asked them to change that mixed-use area to encompass a larger area. So this parcel is being maintained for future mixed use as Phase 3. On August 16th, the town council approved the rezoning, which included the architectural conditions and design controls. Parks and Recreation has recommended a fee in lieu for the units. The subdivision is located in the secondary watershed protection overlay district, and the development will comply with the requirements of the UDO. The proposed master subdivision plan is consistent with the Apex Transportation Plan. As I mentioned, Phase 1 will have access to Old Jenks Road, while Phase 2 will provide a street through the development from Holt Road to Jenks Road, and there is one cul-de-sac. When the future mixed-use phase comes in, we will look at access options for that. It should have access from this internal road as well.
Can they even access it from Old Jenks Road, the mixed use?
Probably not.
So it would only be from Thornapple Drive?
Yeah, I would leave that to NCDOT and our traffic.
Well, NCDOT will just deny it.
Engineers to, yeah, they'll review and
So
approve.
it's gotta be, it has to come off of one of those 2 roads. I'm surprised it doesn't show some sort of an idea of what might happen.
I don't think they have a proposed use yet for the parcel, so a little premature.
Yeah.
The Jenks Crossing subdivision plan is in compliance with the standards provided in the UDO and the approved zoning conditions. Planning staff does recommend approval of the subdivision plan, and the planning board unanimously recommended approval at their meeting. I'd be happy to answer any questions, and the applicant is here.
What were the buffers along the roadways? Could you repeat those, please?
Sure. Along Old Jenks, it's a 30-foot type A. Along Holt, so it's only this little section right here, is a 20-foot type A. Behind the townhomes to Charleston Village is 25 feet. And, behind the single family is a 10-foot type B.
Type A and type B.
Yes.
Okay, perfect, thank you. Also, with Holt Road, we are not making any changes to that intersection, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Buffers were type A and type B, right?
Mhm. I put a little chart in the staff report if you wanna look at that, instead of that.
I guess I'm still a little confused about the future mixed-use area. This has a very small, really small stormwater pond, it looks like to me, for what it services. I assume that would not service the mixed-use area. Is that what the calculations are for, is just for the townhomes, for that little itty-bitty?
We only reviewed the, residential subdivision at this time.
Okay, so the Phase 3 would have to have their own stormwater pond, I suppose.
I'll let the engineer answer that.
Okay. Okay.
All right, any other questions for, let's make sure before you, because normally we don't entertain this right now. We're just trying to get a master subdivision plan considered. Let me see if there's any other questions for Brendy. Pardon?
She had deferred a question to Mr. Jones, that's why, I think that's why it came up.
Okay, is that because, can you ask the question succinctly? I want to make sure it's.
I first wanted to make sure that stormwater pond, the itty-bitty one down there, is only servicing the townhomes, is that correct?
Okay, yeah, and this is one you want to defer the answer?
Yeah.
Okay.
Stuart Jones, Jones and Connaughton, yes, that pond is only for the townhomes. The Phase 3, the mixed use would have to have its own stormwater device.
Okay. And I guess I'm a little surprised that there's houses number 25 and 26 in that little island. I thought that was going to be possibly a future stormwater pond area for the mixed use. That was not the intent.
Well, that's not a question. Hang on.
Okay.
Yeah. So, the question is, you're not going to use that obviously as a stormwater pond area now. All right.
Any other questions for Brendy? Thanks, Stuart. Any other questions for Brendy? All right, is there a motion or discussion leading to a motion?
I'll make a motion we approve.
Second. I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Discussion on the motion?
Well, I would like to say that I'm very satisfied that they put in the buffers that they put in.
Very
And surprised about 25 and 6.
Noted. Today, February 21st, Bill Jensen is very satisfied. That's
It's rare,
excellent.
isn't it?
That's
Well, I'm
excellent.
satisfied about something, part of it.
That's excellent. No, I'm very happy. All right.
You're using your position to pick on me, and I.
No, it's only out of,
appreciate it, too.
it's only out of love. Any further discussion on the motion? Not hearing anything else, let's call for the vote. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. All right, that passes unanimously. We've now conducted all of our new business. We now move to the one closed session item here, which is to discuss land acquisition. As we note that there are no further business items to discuss, I'd like a motion to go into closed session for this purpose.
So moved.
And a second, all in favor indicate by saying aye. All opposed say no. All right, we now are in closed session. Thank you very much for coming, everyone.
Well, you could have come up earlier and said I wasn't going to.
So, do I tell my son to pick my daughter up at 8:40?